Now, for more on the political reaction to the worst mass shooting in U.S. history, we now cross live to our correspondent in Washington, John Bevir. John, thank you very much for joining us now. Reports surfaced today suggesting that a South African was amongst the 50 people killed in the nightclub. Has this been confirmed?
Well, in the last few minutes, actually, I've had an email from the South African embassy here in Washington, D.C. Now, they have not been able to confirm yet whether or not one of the victims was of South African descent. They said that the conversations are continuing, that the embassy is talking to the relevant authorities to make sure they have all the facts straight before they put out any kind of statement to the press. There's no timeline on when that is going to happen, though. It is being widely reported on social media, certainly that one of the victims was from South Africa, but we are still waiting to hear whether that is actually the case.
John, take us through some of the responses coming from Washington.
Well, we've just heard what President Obama had to say, and as the police investigation into this terrible shooting continues, well, now the political fallout really has begun. The discussions, debates and arguments have really started. There are two main key issues being debated here. One is whether these assault rifles need to be banned, or if not banned, whether there need to be stricter checks on who can buy them and how long it takes those people to get their hands on the guns once they have bought them. Now, that is a hugely controversial issue. There are millions of Americans who take their right to bear arms, the Second Amendment to the Constitution, they take that right very seriously. They see any threat to people trying to stop their ability to buy guns, they take that as a very serious threat. Now, the other main issue being discussed is what to do about lone wolf terrorists. What can be done to stop somebody who views videos online to then go out and carry out an atrocity such as this? Now, Hillary Clinton has said that more needs to be done to stop ISIS. She said in a speech that identifying and stopping lone wolf terrorists was her top priority. Now, that, of course, is very easy to say. It's probably a bit harder to carry out in real life. Now, Donald Trump responded to that with a speech about an hour after Hillary Clinton's speech. He said that he would protect and defend all Americans, and he announced a new policy. Not only would he introduce a ban on Muslim migrants coming into this country, he would also suspend immigration from places with a proven history of terrorism against the United States. He has said he will do all he can to keep Americans safe.
Now, John, looking at the three statements from President Obama, Hillary Clinton, as well as Donald Trump, what are the people on the ground saying? How are they receiving it?
Well, there are two very definite camps here. There are people who think that one of the very big problems here is gun control, that people should not be able to get their hands on what Hillary Clinton referred to as a weapon of war, these assault rifles with the ability to fire a huge amount of ammunition very quickly. Now, there are people who say they don't have any place in regular life in America. They should only be used by the military. So that, of course, is one camp. And then, as I've mentioned previously, there are people who very much disagree with that, and they defend the right to buy whatever gun they want. And then, of course, there is more the Donald Trump camp, people who say that the problem is radical Islamic terrorism, that is the issue, that they need to stop migration. Now, again, whether you agree with either of those things probably depends on who you're likely to support in the forthcoming election. The majority of Trump supporters would agree with what he says in terms of stopping many migrants coming in who might pose a threat to the US. And of course, many of Hillary Clinton's supporters say, well, more needs to be done to try and stop these people from radicalizing before they ever become radicalized. So working with youth groups and community leaders in the Muslim community to stop that. And when you talk to people on the streets here, their political lines very much are dictated by who they support.
Now, speaking of those political lines, in terms of the statements that were made between Hillary and Donald Trump, are they at risk of focusing too much on getting those votes instead of focusing on what the people of America need right now?
Well, indeed. Hillary Clinton said today that she didn't want to make this a political issue, that this shouldn't be about the election. But of course it was. She was meant to use her speech today, which was in Ohio, very much as the launch pad of her general election campaign. Ohio is a very important swing state and one that she would very much want to win if she were to go on to become the next president. But of course her speech became all about the campaign, about what she would do to try and stop things. And the response from Donald Trump, again, was 100% focused on the shootings and what he can do to keep Americans safe. But of course, there are a huge number of issues that are yet to be properly discussed, to do with healthcare, to do with insurance, to do with unemployment, and really the things that matter to Americans. But at the moment, because this shooting is fresh in the minds of all Americans, they are very concerned at the moment about what can be done to stop things like this becoming a more regular feature.
Now, just finally, John, in terms of what Donald Trump had said, I mean, referring to President Obama as well as Hillary Clinton and them not mentioning ISIS and ISIL when they did make their statements after this attack, have they reacted to him in any way?
Well, President Obama certainly tries not to be ever to be drawn into a war of words with Donald Trump, no matter what the subject. He tries not to give him the time of day, to be brutally honest, because he doesn't want to validate what Donald Trump is saying. President Obama has never come out and said that the problem is radical Islamic extremists, because he believes that the people carrying this out, they are in no way true supporters of Islam, that they have what he refers to as a perverted sense of what Islam is. Now, of course, Donald Trump has been very critical of that. Hillary Clinton has today said that one of the issues is radical Islam. Now, she has very much said, as I mentioned, that she wants to try and solve this problem before it becomes a problem. So talking to youth groups, talking to communities. But everyone now is trying to score as many political points as they can from what was a terrible shooting.
John, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for that update. That was our Washington correspondent, John Bevir, giving us the latest, or rather the political reaction from that shooting in Orlando. We'll have more news for you after the break. Stay